Well, welcome back to Root Feelings, a podcast dedicated to learning and growing from our lived experiences. For today's episode, we're going to touch on a topic that's very personal. It's about, the term is dissociation, but really it's about the mechanisms that we use to protect ourselves when we're going through difficult things. Before we get started, we want to touch on our segment of what's on your mind. So Michelle, what's on your mind?
On my mind, I have a exam called the comp predictor, which determines whether if I'm going to pass or fail this semester, but also the likelihood of me passing the national boards, which are the NCLEX. It's called the NCLEX, and
This is for nursing school,
yeah,
right?
this is
because
for
I don't know
nursing
any
school.
of these terms.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, yeah, that's for nursing, and it's like a 180 question exam. And so I'm really stressed about it because I did a practice exam and I did not do so well on it. I got 2 tries on this comp predictor exam. So I just want to kill it the first time and then just not have to worry about it the second time. Like, who cares how I do the second time? But yeah, that's just what's been on my mind. I just stressing a little over that. But yeah.
Well, good luck, Michelle,
Thank you.
and power to you for all the dedication to this journey, right? Because it's
Yeah.
your nursing journey. So
Yeah. I mean, if I
I'm sure
fail,
you'll do
it's not the worst thing, you know? I mean,
the goal is to learn.
exactly.
And if you've already learned a lot. You know, tests can be stressful, you know, can cause a lot of anxiety, but it's really about what you're learning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
power to you. For myself, what's on my mind, I'm still processing a lot. Jose and I did a healing ceremony this past weekend, and it was a moment to release a lot of things that I've been holding in. So I'm still in the process of processing everything that happened. And I'm feeling very grateful and thankful for my family, you know, for my family, both personally, but also Jose's family, who encouraged something like this. So expressing a lot of gratitude and just processing. So, on the topic of dissociation, a few weeks, maybe like 2 weeks ago, we were having just a casual conversation, and I explained to you something that I had experienced growing up, and you connected with that. You were like, wait, I'm not the only one that's felt that way. And so, in an effort to help other people feel like they're not alone in experiencing things like that, we do want to touch on the topic. And I can start for myself. What came out of that conversation in short was that there was a moment in my teenage years where I looked at myself in the mirror and I did not recognize who I was. And it was a very scary moment because I got to see who I was and not recognize that person as a teenager, where you don't even know what's going on, type of thing. And so now as an adult, having talked about it, having been through therapy, that's the term for that is called dissociation, where you're not mentally, you're not experiencing the world around you. You are disconnected from what's happening around you, and it's a mechanism that we use to protect ourselves. So I don't really know what was happening at that point in time in my life where I created this persona, or I forgot who I was for a quick second, and or who knows how long that had been developed, right? But the shocking moment was seeing myself in the mirror and being like, that's not who I thought I was. Like, what is going on? And unfortunately, I also didn't feel safe enough to talk about it, because I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my siblings. It was just something that I processed of like, oh, like, who is that person? Seeing myself and just forgetting about it almost, until it's been brought up here and there. And like I said, through therapy, it was brought up once a few years ago, where I was talking to my therapist at the time, and she asked me, like, have you ever heard about this term dissociation? And I obviously at that point in time I didn't know what it was, and I said no. And she pointed out that in the middle of my conversation there was a moment where it was like I wasn't really there, like physically, because she's trained to notice this. She saw how my mind was processing it, and it was like a moment where I was just like, oh, it's okay. So it's this mechanism that I've used to just kind of put aside what I was really feeling, what I was really experiencing, and just say, it's okay, like everything's fine. And it happened where she noticed it was my eyes. Like, and I notice it now where I will course correct how I look, how I sit, and my face will change a little bit, where I feel like I'm more like putting on a face on, so that everything seems like it's fine. But in my mind, there's other things going on, whether it's like being uncomfortable, disagreeing maybe, upset, being upset at things. And so it's a mechanism that I've just developed, and I've been developing techniques for myself to stay grounded. That's why mindfulness, meditation, movement has been crucial to myself, because otherwise, like, it's very easy to do that, because it's something that I've done for years, where if I disagree, I don't like something, it's a switch in my head of everything's fine, everything's okay. So that was like really heavy to talk about initially, but that's really what we're wanting to cover and share with y'all about the different ways and how to notice for yourself, like when that's happening for yourself, when you're pretending that things are okay, when in reality you're not okay. You're processing things. You might need time, or you might need to express how you're feeling in a environment that feels safe enough for you to do that. So yeah, I know I had shared that with you, and you were like, wait, like that happened to you? Like, I felt that way too.
The part where really got me interested, or like recognized that I wasn't the only one that happened to, was when you said I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself, because I did that. I had a moment in my life where I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. I'm like, that isn't me. I don't know who that person is, but that's not the person who I feel that I am. That's not the person who I thought I looked like. Like, just my facial features, my eyes, my hair, everything. I was like, that's not what I look like. Like, mirrors, this isn't, no. And I would ask people, is that really what I look like? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not me, And I had a hard time with that for a long time. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, I thought I was the only one who looked in the mirror and didn't recognize that person, And, but like the disassociation part, I feel like I've done that since I was a little kid. Because, and I know that I used to do that when I was younger. And there's still times where I can feel myself. Now I recognize the symptoms, and I recognize when I'm about to start disassociating. so I can stop it, But when I was little, I didn't recognize the symptoms. I didn't realize that's what was going on. And now as an adult, I realized why I don't remember a lot of my childhood. Because my brothers, they'll often talk about memories, things that happened when we were younger, and we were all there. Because I will hear them talking, and I'm like, oh, where the hell was I? Like, where was I? And they'll be like, remember, Michelle? Like, and then you did this, and I'm like, no, I don't remember actually. And they're like, what? And I'm like the oldest, so you would assume that I remember these things, but no. Like, I don't remember anything. I have like memories here and there of things that happened, but if I try to think about something in my childhood, it's blank. It's not there. Nothing. I think I remember more from like when I was maybe 10 and on. That's it. And that's still a little spotty, but I remember more from when I was like 10 and on. But anything beforehand, absolutely nothing. Just tiny little specks and spots. And I don't know if it's a memory or if it's just because my brothers mentioned it. Like, because if I try to close my eyes and picture it, I can't see it. I just can't. And so I didn't realize, I thought that was normal. I thought that just people don't remember things just because we get older, we forget shit. But they're like, no. Like, then I started to notice that people would be like freaking 30s and 40s. They're like, oh yeah, I remember when I was like 4 or 5 or 6 and I did this, and I'm like, what? I was like, I can barely remember what I freaking did yesterday. Like, I don't know. So that's when I did some research, and I was like, why can't I remember what's wrong with me? What's going on? And then I came across this article that said that our minds protect us from things like traumas. They protect us from traumas. They protect us from things we don't want to remember, shouldn't remember, so it's just our brains. And obviously something happened to me that I just don't remember, I disassociated, and a lot of my childhood is gone because of it. Yeah. I don't know why I'm crying also. It's weird that happened, and I still don't understand. Like, talking about it, I get emotional, but I'm like, why am I getting emotional? Like, I don't even know why I'm upset about it, but every time I talk about it, I get emotional. So that's how I know that something happened, because I feel it in my body. I sense it, that something happened, but I don't remember it. And it makes me sad because I don't remember my childhood. But I know it's just like a defense mechanism. Now that I'm older, I understand that. And now, because I guess I used that when I was younger, now it's easier for me, like, to disassociate as an adult. Like, if I'm just stressed or just don't want to deal with a certain situation, I disassociate. And I start to feel it, because I will zone out. It's not really zoning out, but I can feel my facial structures changing, and my eyes, they start to unfocus, and like my vision just starts to unfocus, and then I'll just like stare blankly ahead, and then either I'm thinking about other things, or I don't know what happens. I just feel like I'm just present, like my body's here, but my mind is like not. And I hate when I do that, because I've realized that when I do that, I lose time. It happened to me one time when I was driving home. It's happened to me a couple of times actually, and I freaked myself out because I don't remember how I got from point A to point B. I just know that I leave, and then the next thing I know, I'm home. And I don't remember like what I saw on the way home. I don't remember if I caused any accidents, and I'm like, what? Like, I just don't recall any of that stuff. The last thing I remember is, like, for example, if I was here, I remember this, you know, but I don't remember from in between. And then I'm home and I'm like, oh. And then it freaks me out. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I can't allow myself to do that. So now whenever I sense that I'm doing that, even when I'm talking to certain, like, to people, or they're talking to me, and I'm trying to, like, listen to them and focus on what they're saying, all of a sudden I start to feel it, and I'm like, hold on, where are you going? You know what I mean? Like, stay here, stay in the present, like, you're okay, you know, calm down. And so I start to focus on, like, just my breathing, you know, and sometimes I don't pay attention to what the person is saying because I'm trying to stay present. And I'm like, hey, stay present, stay present, stay present. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what did they just say? You know, and I'm like, wait, no, pay attention. Like, you're okay. You're, like, disassociating. You're going away. And I start to, like, move my toes. And then I'm like, okay, like, I'm okay. And I've noticed that it starts to happen when I'm overly stressed. Like, those are the times where it happens the most, because when I'm having fun and I'm okay and I'm not anxious or stressed about anything, I'm present, you know. But if I'm overly stressed, that's when it tends to happen the most. And it's just a scary thing. I hate it because sometimes I feel like I can, like, I don't know, I feel like I can go into this weird, like, psychosis or something, even though it probably has nothing to do with it, but I feel like it freaks me out because I'm like, what if I go crazy one day, you know, and I go into this psychosis episode and I don't, like, remember anything, you know, like, I don't want to hurt anybody. Not that, like, I have those intentions, you know, like, I never want to harm anyone, but it scares me because that's how people who have, like, bipolar disorders or schizophrenia, or I can't remember the other ones, I think it's just bipolar and schizophrenia, but when they have a mental disorder, they have those episodes where they see red, I guess, you know, it's not like the medical term, but they start to get manic episodes, that's what they're called, where they're okay and then all of a sudden they start to get agitated. But obviously those symptoms are, like, way different than what I experienced, because there's this agitation, they start pacing, they start, like, talking really fast, or they start saying, like, just things, you know, and that doesn't happen to me. But it freaks me out that I could do that, you know, and I don't ever want to do that. And it also makes me sad because I lose time, like, I lose memories. I'm not here, I'm not present, I'm not enjoying my life, like, I'm somewhere else. And for a child to have done that when she was young makes me sad, you know, because I'm like, I think about Liam and I'm like, I would hate for him to have gone through something so horrible that he doesn't remember his childhood. And he's 11 right now, and he's recalling things from when he was 2. He'd be like, Mom, remember when we lived in this place? And he starts describing things, and I'm like, oh, he's talking about when we lived here, and this happened. And I'm like, how does he remember that? You know, I'm like, how? And I look at him and I'm like, you remember that? He goes, yeah. And then I'm like, wow, that's insane. But at the same time, it makes me happy because I know that he hasn't gone through any trauma. You know, that his body has felt like he needed protection. So I don't know, disassociation is such a scary thing, and it's definitely a defense mechanism that we have. It's amazing that our minds can do that, you know, like just defend us from danger, even if we're not in danger, you know. Now that we're adults, I'm sure that when we were in danger when we were little, like that happens, you know, when you're little. Like you shouldn't, when you're little, you're so defenseless that your body coped, like my body coped and said, I'm going to defend you, don't worry about it. You know, and as an adult, now every little thing, like it's like, danger, you know, like the alarms go off even though you're not really in danger. It's just your body like reacting, being triggered. So I have to be mindful and recognize my symptoms, and not allow myself to disassociate. Now, I'm not perfect, and it happens every now and then, but usually when I know that I'm overly stressed, I tend to just be like, okay, like I just need to like breathe, and for the most part I'm okay. But yeah, it's a scary thing. It's, I don't know, I wish I didn't have it. I wish I didn't go through it, and I thought I was the only one, you know, that had gone through that situation. Especially the not recognizing myself in the mirror. Now I'm a lot better. Now I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh, that is me, you know, like that person is me. I'm beautiful, I'm gorgeous, I love my hair, and I just like admire myself. I will literally sit in the restroom sometimes just looking at myself and admiring every part of my face because I didn't for so long. So it's such a weird thing, and hopefully no psychiatrist listens to this because I don't want to get locked up.
I mean, it's from our experience, right? Like, this is what it's like. This is the real, this is our, first of all, this is our podcast. These are our opinions. These are not based, I mean, we are two smart, intelligent women who have, you know, been through therapy, who have done their research. We're not experts in any of this. We have a direct experience in it. And I think that that's more valuable than, you know, someone talking about what that is like. So, yeah, like if someone that has a background in this, like maybe share with us, you know, more information about it. How can we regulate things as they come on? But not as a form of judgment, or if we said something wrong, like definitely correct us. We're here to learn.
No, I meant like locking up by like putting me in the state asylum.
No.
They're like, oh, you have these symptoms. Girl, danger.
No. That's also what's wrong with our society. We don't need to lock up people that are experiencing traumatic experiences, you know? Like, actually, we should be protecting them. We should be inquiring, why are you feeling that way? Why is that happening? What about this situation is causing you to feel unsafe? You know, instead of like, why are you acting that way? Or, oh, you're not being present, why aren't you here? Like expressing judgment. You know, we're not, that's not what we're trying to do. So
I mean, I think the society has gotten better now with like mental illnesses. I mean, if you think about it, decades ago, they used to freaking do lobotomies on people who were like us, like hysterical, you know, they say women are hysterical, but whatever. Anyway, so like they would lock us up, they would do lobotomies, they would do shock treatments, they would do ice baths, they would do what else? I can't remember what else it was. There was a bunch of other things. I was so fascinated by this type of like mental health that I went down like a rabbit hole there for a while, that I did a lot of research on it, and it was just fascinating. Like, I love books like that how people were treated back then, just because it was so interesting to see how people who are afraid of something they don't know will go to the extreme measures just to try to control something that they're afraid of. And it's but now we've come a long way. Like, they don't lock us up anymore.
Yeah. And that term also, I'm just like, no, like, we are in a different time, and that's not the way that we treat each other. We're moving towards a society that's more compassionate, that's more understanding of our reactions to things. I remember, growing up, having those stigmas, even to this day. What I went through on Saturday, my conversations the next day was expressing that I was a little crazy. I was like, oh, estás loco. And everyone's like, this is not crazy. Like, this is real. Like, what you went through was real. And I was like, oh, like, I've had to check in with myself. Told you. Was it recording or no? Oh, I thought it was it. Thank you. That there's these stigmas that, as you're pointing out, right, that because people were trying to understand and were trying to control women, especially, they felt the need to do these experiments on them. But we have come a long way. There's still a lot of learning that we need to do, but that terminology is something that I had to revisit this past weekend of like, oh, you're not crazy. You're not crazy for feeling that way, for having experienced things. Learning about it and dissociation, I express a lot of gratitude to myself. Like, I'm like, wow, like, whatever was happening at those point in times must have been really scary, and I'd rather have these, because I also, with memory, you talked about memory, there's memories that I'm unsure if they happened or not, and some of those memories are some of the most beautiful memories I have. Like, for example, there was the story about my 3rd birthday. For years, my 3rd birthday was like the best thing in the world. Like, I remember my mind, right? I remember looking out my window and seeing my family out with music. My uncle from Mexico was there. Like, I just knew that everyone was there to celebrate me. Years later, and I don't know, my parents have different stories. My dad passed now, so I can't verify with him. But part of it was that my dad had said that I didn't have a 3rd birthday party. And then years later, my mom was like, actually, you did. So I'm like, so which one was true?
Yeah.
And that they said that my dad said the reason why that didn't happen was because I did something really bad. And it was because, and I'm like, this story, I was a little kid, I was 3 years old. They left me alone with my baby brother in the bathtub, and apparently I was trying to drown him.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, what was going on in my head for me to do that, nor why did they leave me alone.
Exactly. First of all,
with my little brother, but that their reaction to that was a punishment. Right? Like, I did something wrong. I don't need to treat my brother that way. But as I've shared, I'm like, there's a lot of like turmoil between him and I, because he's very reactive and he was very violent towards me. And I could not protect myself, because the moment I did something, it was like I was the worst thing in the world. So, like, memory plays a big part of it. Of like, for me, it was, I created beautiful memories. I created this beautiful memory of having this amazing birthday party.
Mm.
But I'm uncertain if that actually did happen.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, I express gratitude because some of my memories might have been a little exaggerated, you know, a little like drama of like, oh, I had this big birthday party with all of this, and it was so beautiful. But in reality, my mind was trying to imagine how I would have been celebrated as a little kid. And so that's where I'm like, no, our brain is very powerful. Like, it protects us. And I have a lot of gratitude for those moments that, as you said it lost time. But it was also like time that if you would have been there, probably would have been worse type of shit. And so it's like, okay, I'd rather not have lived through that and created these whole memories or not have memories than to actually live through that and have experienced whatever trauma was happening, because that wasn't the only thing, right? It carried on through my teenage years. Like you said, as an adult now, you still have the mechanisms that you developed when you were a little kid. And that's why I think I am committed to learning about myself, to understanding and listening to my siblings' stories, because there are stories that I'm like, I don't remember that, and they will all share the same experience, my mom included, my dad, when he would share memories, and I'd be like, I don't really remember that, but I trust you. I trust that if you said I was there, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a way to protect ourselves, and I think that's why our minds are so powerful, you know, because I would rather be in a Delulu world than actually have been experiencing what I was experiencing at the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think, and I'm afraid to, I know that they say that there's ways to go to therapy and unlock those memories, but I'm afraid to. Like, I don't want to face that. I mean, I think at some point I would, but because I feel like that would probably help with a lot of like healing and just growing as a person, and I am someone who will do whatever, you know, just to make sure I am constantly growing and becoming a better version of myself, and to find out what happened. And maybe it was something dumb, you know, like I didn't get my favorite ice cream, and just kidding, who knows?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, obviously it was very traumatic, otherwise my mind wouldn't have done that. But I mean, I would feel disappointed if that's all I wanted. So be like, really?
Attention.
Damn, girl. But yeah, I just feel like, at least for myself, that I would eventually want to face those, just to personal growth, you know? But yeah, dissociation, so fun.
Sure. Well, something I wanted to reference was the book, because the terms that you've been using in some of the language is in reference to the idea that our body keeps score, that our body remembers what happened, but our mind like disconnected or forgot or tucked it very, very deep in your memory, as a way to protect yourself. And so in reference to the book, it's called The Body Keeps Score, Brain, Mind and Body in the Healing of Trauma. And this book is pretty hard to read because it's talking about things like sexual assault, people killing other people, just like very hard things that people can do. But it has a way of normalizing for me, of like, okay, like this is something that has been studied, and this person also, I don't know too much about them, but I think there's been some controversy about him. So I want to acknowledge that, you know, the research and how research is brought about, like you mentioned, has also exploited people. So some of the things that they talk about are in reference to maybe studies. They talked about hysteria. They talked about dissociation. So just acknowledging that, you know, this is not like a Bible or anything.
Oh, right.
This is like a way to understand how things work, but not the only way that works. So there is a topic on here about there's a chapter about how our minds protect ourselves from trauma, and it talked about fragmented memories where you just remember bits and pieces. It talked about memories being linked to emotions, you feeling very emotional, right, and feeling very sad is part of that memory that, or trauma that might have happened, right, of feeling that sorrow, feeling sad, feeling maybe let down or something. And so it helped me like understand that, of like, oh, okay, that's why I carry a lot of sorrow in me. I have a lot of, you know, sadness, or that's why I am overcritical of myself, because the memories I have are just like, you're not good enough, you're too fat, your hair is too curly, you don't do this, you don't do that. So it's all those memories that, or experiences that I've had that have been tucked into my brain and have been quote unquote fragmented, you know, that are connected to those emotions. And that's why it is hard to face it, because when you face it, it's like you have to look at yourself and see that little girl crying and imagine how she felt, and maybe even feel it, right? Like you feel that sorrow and that disappointment that happened in that point in time. But these are all mechanisms that our brain has used to protect us, and that's why I'm like, yeah, it's scary, it's sad, but it's also very powerful. Like, wow, like my brain protects me. My brain took care of me when what I was experiencing was too hard for me to experience. So this book is a difficult one. Like if you're ready to learn about those things, I encourage you to read it. But like I said, it does talk about some traumatic things. And I was reading this last night to prepare for today, and just kind of making sure that, you know, we're informed, that we are able to speak from experience, but also have done some research. So things like this. The other, when my therapist pointed out and shared with me the term dissociation, is when I also began my journey into understanding a little bit more of psychology. And for people that are into that and want to learn more, I'd recommend, it's called Psychology in Seattle. They have a podcast and YouTube channel. He's known more for, he will watch reality TV and then he'll explain what might be happening. And reality TV is a drama, right?
Yeah.
So it might be exaggerated, but the way that he talks about it is like, it helps me understand a little bit more. It helps me relate to some of those people. Like, if someone is overly reactive and upset, right? I can see myself doing that. I can see myself being very upset, crying, maybe screaming, you know, because I'm upset. And he'll explain like, oh, like, you know, in people that I've worked with, I understand that some people struggled with XYZ growing up. And then it's like, oh, like I didn't think of that in that way. And so it helps me understand. So for people that are struggling with or have experienced any dissociation or any mental health issues, one, go to a therapist. Always, like, go to a therapist. It's a way to put things aside. I think a lot of us, we're always constantly running, and even when you're alone at home, there's still things that you're thinking about. So dedicating some time to someone that doesn't know you but is really trying to understand you is actually very empowering, because you feel like you don't feel judged, you don't feel discouraged when you're sharing the things that you're sharing. It's a space for you to feel safe and share that. So definitely therapy is really important. We've talked about mindfulness and the importance of catching yourself, like you said, when that happens, to maybe it's a moment to like implement a little bit more mindful practices for that time until it becomes a routine for you. But mindfulness is a way to, like, for me, that has helped me also avoid dissociating as often as I did, and normalizing these conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that you don't feel like you're crazy, so that you don't feel like you're alone, or that this is a unique experience. Like, we're all, and that's why I felt like it was important to talk about it, because in this day and age, there's so many ways that we can disconnect. And that's what dissociation feels like, is a disconnection between what's happening in front of you and what you're seeing on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or what is going on at your job, which, you know, all of our jobs are important, but like the reality is that there's a lot of things that we need to take care of more. That is our community, that is our environment, that is waters, our animals, our homes. There's a lot of things that are going on around us that is very hard to accept. And we've been relying on other people to take care of that for us, because we're disconnected. We're disconnected from the belief that we actually have the ability to do something about it. When we were kids, we couldn't do anything. You know, like what you said. You maybe, you know, the example of you wanted an ice cream and they said that you couldn't have the ice cream. That was the end of the world for you, right?
Yeah.
That could have been the end of the world. Me not having a party was the end of the world for me, that I created this whole ass memory of it. But we're now adults that have agency, that we have the ability that if someone doesn't want to celebrate me, okay, you don't have to celebrate me. I'm gonna celebrate me. I'm gonna take care of me. Or someone doesn't want to give you an ice cream, well, you can go get your ice cream, type of shit.
Yep.
So I think it's for me, it's been that call of like, there is a lot of reasons, a lot of distractions that we are living around, and that I feel like sometimes as a society we're dissociated, right? Because we're not confronting what's really happening in front of us, which is, you know, political turmoil, environmental crisis, health crisis, education crisis, you know. And it's like, we have the ability to do something about it, but yet we're over here making dancing videos, or we're over here worrying about what we're gonna buy for Christmas, you know. And it's like, but do you know what's gonna happen tomorrow? You know, do you know how you're gonna navigate, you know, the storms that are coming? Simple things that I think we tend to not deal with until they become a crisis, until it's almost too late to face that reality, because it's bigger than what we could have handled maybe 10 years ago. So that's why I felt like it was important, because I think that as individuals we might experience it, but I think as a society we also have a way to disconnect from reality. And like, we've been talking about being present, being engaged, been talking about what's happening in our country, and I think it is a time for us to really practice being here instead of disconnecting.
I mean, yeah, like that's one of the reasons, you know, to be present and stuff, but I think it stems from within first. You can't save the world or help the world if you're not okay. So, like for those of you struggling with mental health problems and issues, you know, like personal problems and stuff, and you mean well, like I know that we all want to like perfect the world and save the world and, you know, do these things, but we can't do that unless we take care of ourselves first. So just make sure that, you know, you find someone that you can talk to and be open to and that you're safe with. Like Carmen said, just like find a therapist. I know that things are expensive right now and it's difficult to go to therapy, but find that safe person, find that person that you can talk to and be open with and connect with, so that you can let go of these things and realize that you are not alone and you can work on yourself. There are other like resources, like Carmen had mentioned. There's books, there's articles on like dissociation, mental health disorders that you can learn a lot of. You obviously can't diagnose yourself, so definitely recommend seeing a family doctor who can lead you to the correct and proper resources. That way, when we are mentally stable and healthy to take care of ourselves and doing that personal healing and growth, we can take on the rest of the world. But
yeah, I like that. That recommendation, especially of like going to your doctor and then having that as a referral. That's usually the way you can get around not having to pay for a private session. It's more like it's actually for your own health. So definitely, and if you don't have your own private insurance, I'm sure your state has insurance, so you can always access it. And there's community resources as well. So well, we can close that out. Do you have anything else to add?
No, just thank you so much for listening, and as always, please share this with your friends, families. New episodes come out every Thursday, and just have your friends share with friends. And thank you again for listening, and just I'm really like about feedback, so let us know what you want to listen up, like what you want us to talk about, what you enjoy listening, what was your favorite episode. Just any feedback helps a lot. But thank you again.
We hope this resonates. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to
Root Feelings.